Among the silent monks of the northern path, there is a saying whispered only once to a disciple. He who cannot read the wind will walk straight into the storm. Many seek clarity. Few understand that after closeness, whether with the flesh, the heart, or the divine, what follows is not always peace. Sometimes it is a message, a prophecy, a test, and sometimes it is fate knocking gently or to see if you're finally awake. What does a man truly think after intimacy? Not with his mind, but with his soul. Today you will find out, but only if you listen not with ears, but with stillness. There is a moment often overlooked in the quiet after closeness. When the room is still, the air carries the faint warmth of touch, and time seems to stretch into silence. It is in this space that something ancient begins to stir, not in the mind, but in the soul. What does a man truly think after intimacy? Not always in words. Often it is a feeling, a knowing, a subtle shift in the currents of being. And so we begin with the first whisper of this sacred journey, the gentle, almost imperceptible call of intuition. He does not always know why he turns his head at a certain moment, or why a deep sigh escapes him with no cause. But the soul knows, the soul listens. Intuition is not a loud voice. It is the rustle of leaves before the storm. It is the shadow that flickers just before dawn. It is the language of the inner world, soft, fluid, and honest. While the mind seeks reason, the heart already recognizes the truth. A man after intimacy may find himself restless, not because of regret or confusion, but because something has been stirred awake. He feels a pull toward reflection, toward meaning. The silence is not empty. It is full of questions waiting to be answered. In the teachings of old, monks would speak of the second vision, the sight beyond sight. Not the eye's vision, but the soul's. It is this sight that intuition offers us. And often it awakens most fully when we are stripped bare, not just of clothes, but of pretense. The bird does not wait for the branch to be still. It trusts its wings. Ancient Shaolin saying, there is a parable that tells of a student who came to the temple seeking enlightenment. He trained for years, mastering forms, memorizing texts, and meditating through long nights, but peace never settled within him. One evening, as the lanterns were being lit, he watched a leaf fall into the temple pond. The ripples moved out in perfect circles. He turned to the old master and asked, "Why can I not find peace?" The master smiled and said, "Because you have been chasing echoes instead of listening to the first sound. So too does a man often chase the feelings after intimacy, pleasure, attachment, uncertainty, without listening to the first sound, intuition. It is in this quiet signal that the truth of the moment lies, whether the connection was aligned with his highest path, or merely a shadow of longing. His inner compass speaks. He must only be still enough to hear. In daily life, this shows itself in the way we feel drawn or repelled without explanation. One may walk into a room and feel light, calm, as though the air itself supports him. Another room may feel heavy, though no threat appears. Intuition is like this. It is the soul's reaction before the mind constructs its reasoning. In the same way, after intimacy, a man might feel energized and clear, as if something sacred has been exchanged. Or he may feel drained, clouded, as if something vital was taken rather than shared. These are not random moods. They are signals, not judgments, but invitations to look within. And in such moments, we are reminded of the wisdom of Lao Tao Sucho. At the center of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are and what you want. But to reach this center, one must walk quietly, slowly, with reverence. The second truth flows naturally from the first. If the soul has whispered, then time itself begins to listen. There are moments not bound by the ticking of clocks, but by the rhythm of the universe. These are sacred windows, brief, powerful openings through which destiny reaches toward us. The ancients did not mark time only by hours and days. They observed the stars, the behavior of animals, the movement of wind across water. They knew that time has seasons of energy. Some days carry the scent of transformation, while others bring storms meant to test the foundations of our inner temple. In every month, there are hidden dates, unspoken but deeply felt, when life either invites or warns. These are the spiritual tides of fate. The man who walks awake to these cycles does not force his way forward. He aligns himself. He listens to the pulse beneath the surface of time. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Ecclesiastes 3, the energy between the ninth and cloth, for example, is often a gateway. Not dramatic but subtle. You may feel dreams becoming clearer, old emotions surfacing, a gentle discomfort that cannot be named. This is not confusion. It is a stirring. The soil of your spirit is being prepared. What you choose to plant will grow. During this time, intimacy can act as a mirror. If you are aligned, you may feel a sense of elevation after closeness, as though you and the other were speaking in a language older than words. If misaligned, you may feel a quiet grief, as though something inside knows this is not the path forward. The tree does not blossom in every season, and not every season is meant for blossoming. A short story is told of a man who wandered into a monastery during the waning moon. He sought answers, but the monks would not speak. He stayed for 3 days. No one gave him teachings, yet he began to wake before sunrise in silence and tend to the garden. On the 4th day, an old monk approached him and said, "You arrived when the gates of learning were closed, not because we judged you, but because the moon asked you first to listen. Some moments in time are not for action. They are for observation, for realignment." In modern life, these windows still appear, though we often miss them. A sudden urge to be alone, a conflict arising on a seemingly peaceful day, a person reappearing from the past. These are not random. They are moments designed to shift our path between the 13th and 14th. The energy tightens. These are often days of challenge, not for punishment, but for purification. The man who has recently shared intimacy may find himself facing a decision: to stay or to walk away, to speak or to remain silent, to change or to cling. These decisions, if made with awareness, become keys. If made unconsciously, they become chains. A philosopher once wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." Seneca, thus, in these sacred days, it is not about predicting the future, but preparing the self. If a man has listened to his intuition, he will recognize these moments not as chaos, but as choreography. He will not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" He will ask, "What is this moment asking of me?" And so, intuition becomes the eye, and sacred timing becomes the path. Together, form the compass of a spiritually awakened man. To walk this path is to accept that some moments will test your depth. Others will call you to rise, but none are wasted. Every silence, every sigh, every stirring is part of your preparation. The man who honors this does not seek to control the river. He learns to read its flow. And in doing so, he does not merely survive time, he becomes one with it. He moves not ahead of life nor behind it, but possesses within it. And here he becomes free. There is a silence that follows every true awakening. A hush not of emptiness, but of sacred awe. The man who has tasted intimacy, not just in body but in spirit, stands at the edge of a vast inner landscape. And here he may begin to realize that the union was never only with another, but with something greater within himself. For to love, to connect, and to be seen, these are not ordinary things. They are echoes of a larger calling. And yet, not all are called in the same way. Some are marked from birth or broken open by life to carry a different weight. Their path is not one of ease, but of initiation. These are the ones often misunderstood, often alone, often tested by forces others do not see. In every era there have been such souls. They are not better. They are simply chosen. What does it mean to be chosen? It does not mean to be favored, nor lifted above others. To be chosen means to be trusted with difficulty, with clarity, with transformation. Intimacy for such a man is never casual. It is a mirror, a forge, a moment of divine reckoning. After the closeness, he does not drift into forgetfulness. He reflects, he measures, he remembers who he is. The gem cannot be polished without friction, nor the man perfected without trial. Ere Confucius, there is an old Zen tale of a disciple who asked his master, "Why must my path be so difficult while others walk without struggle?" The master led him to a mountain and pointed to 3 different trees. One grows wide and low, easy to reach its fruit. Another climbs high with narrow branches. The third leans over the cliff, its roots wrapped in stone. "Which is the best?" asked the student. The master replied, "The tree that grows in hardship learns to hold on. When the storm comes, it will not fall. So it is with the chosen. They often do not understand why certain encounters stir them deeply, why closeness awakens something ancient and sacred, or why it sometimes leaves them shattered. But they sense it that their path is not random. Every moment of love, loss, connection, or detachment is part of a spiritual shaping. In daily life, shaping appears in the form of recurring challenges. The man finds himself in relationships that reflect his deepest wounds. He feels the weight of responsibility, not just to succeed, but to evolve. Even his solitude feels intentional, like a quiet classroom where the soul is taught lessons no one else can hear. He may find, too, that after intimacy, rather than contentment, he feels a longing, a call to rise, to change, to become. This is not dissatisfaction. It is destiny whispering. Do not wish for an easy life. Wish for the strength to endure a difficult one. Bruce Lee, inspired by Eastern wisdom, when a man begins to walk with this understanding, he no longer resents the trials. He welcomes them, knowing they are refining something precious inside. He sees each person he connects with as a teacher. Every feeling, whether joy or ache, is a message, and each message draws him closer to his true nature. He is not here to escape pain. He is here to transmute it. Like the alchemist, he turns lead into gold, not for wealth, but for wisdom. And so the journey flows into the deeper rhythm that underlies all of life, the sacred cycles of the universe. These cycles are not merely spiritual, they are observable in nature, in breath, in the seasons of the heart. Everything moves in spirals, in waves, in sacred repetitions. And he who walks with awareness begins to see these patterns, not as chains, but as guides. In the ocean, the tides return, not because they are trapped, but because they are attuned to the pull of the moon. In the forest, the trees shed their leaves, not because they are dying, but because they are making space for renewal. So too must we learn to trust the cycles of our becoming. After intimacy, a man may feel an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. He may question his path, his worth, his choices. This is not weakness. It is the turning of a season, the shedding of old skin, the beginning of a new phase. What he feels is not the end. It is the threshold of the next circle. No man steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man. Heraclitus. There is a simple parable from the Shaolin tradition. A young monk, disheartened after failing his martial forms, went to the elder and said, "I keep making the same mistakes. I thought I had learned this already." The elder poured tea into the young monk's cup until it spilled over. "You see," said the elder, "you thought the cup was the same, but your hands tremble differently today. And so the cup must be held with new awareness. Cycles repeat, but not in vain. They return to give us another chance to respond differently, to see with clearer eyes, to act with deeper integrity. Every return is a revision. Every repetition is a rehearsal for mastery. In relationships, we often find ourselves facing familiar patterns. The same argument, the same wound, the same temptation to close off or run. But what if these repetitions are not failures, but invitations? What if they are the universe saying, now that you have more wisdom, try again? In nature, this can be seen in the migration of birds. Every year, they travel thousands of miles, returning to the same places. Not because they are stuck, but because life has taught them that the journey strengthens their wings. The man who understands cycles does not despair in difficulty. He knows the winter comes, not to kill, but to quiet. He honors the stillness, the falling away, the necessary pause. And when spring arrives, in the heart, in the body, in the soul, he opens again, not as he was, but renewed. He becomes a rhythm unto himself, aligned with the greater dance of creation. These two truths, the burden of the chosen one and the sacredness of universal cycles, are not separate. They intertwine like roots beneath the earth. One gives the purpose, the other gives the pattern. Together, they form the spiritual foundation of the awakened man. He walks his path not seeking ease, but seeking meaning. He welcomes closeness not to escape his solitude, but to deepen his self-knowing. He reads the seasons of his emotions not with judgment, but with reverence, and he learns slowly that everything, every tear, every smile, every silence is part of his becoming. When the soul is ready, its teacher appears. But when the soul is wise, it sees every moment as the teacher. Chuo, the unknown monk of the Eastern Gate. As the scroll continues to unroll, this inward journey unfolds, the man begins to see that intimacy was never just about the other. It was a mirror, a milestone, a mystery meant to bring him home to himself. He may not always feel prepared, but he is always being prepared. For some storms refine, some meetings awaken, some endings open gates unseen. And in the quiet aftermath, in the hush between breaths, he will remember us. He is not alone. He is part of something vast, something sacred, something eternal. There is a truth often hidden behind the veil of daily life. Quiet lesson only revealed to those who slow down enough to witness it, that no blessing arrives unaccompanied by preparation. Just as a mountain does not rise without centuries of pressure, and the lotus does not bloom without mud, so too must the soul be sculpted before it may carry the weight of greater fortune, deeper love, or higher purpose. A man may desire peace, connection, or awakening, but desire alone does not open the door. Readiness does, and readiness is not always a visible quality. It is often built in silence, through surrender, discipline, and unseen labor. After intimacy, a man may feel something shift, not just in the heart, but in the bones. A subtle unease or a moment of clarity. That is not restlessness. It is the soul's signal that something must be prepared, adjusted, released. For what enters a man's life, whether love or truth, can only stay if there is room to receive it. Chuo, before the bowl may hold the tea, it must first be emptied. Chuo, old Shaolin saying, there is a story of a monk who carried a heavy jug of water each day up the hill to the temple. The path was steep and his pace was slow. One day, a visitor asked why he did not simply use a lighter container. The monk smiled and said, because I am not only carrying water, I am building the strength to carry what is coming next. In this way, life often gives us not what we want, but what we need to become, what we are meant to be. Intimacy itself is one such offering. It is not only a meeting of bodies, it is a lesson, a fire, a mirror. What it stirs within us, whether love, longing, fear, or insecurity, is not accidental. It is a form of spiritual feedback. If, after closeness, a man feels exposed or unsettled, it is not a flaw. It is a signal. It means that something within him is being revealed. Perhaps a fear of abandonment, a wound of rejection, or an old belief that he is unworthy. These things rise not to shame him, but to prepare him. For how can he carry devotion, presence, or sacred union if he has not first cleared the space within? In daily life, this preparation often appears as isolation, unexpected delay, or emotional challenge. It may feel like the closing of doors. But these are not rejections, they are rearrangements. The soul's furniture being moved to make space for what is sacred. A caterpillar does not become a butterfly through desire alone. It must be sealed in darkness. It must dissolve. The old form must be undone for the new one to emerge. So it is with inner preparation. Do not seek to bring the fire before you are the wood. First, become the kindling. Tuo, apot, monk Yunmen Wenyen, in the stillness after union, if a man feels called to step back, to reflect, to purify his intentions, he must not resist. He must not fill the silence with noise or action. That silence is sacred. It is part of his preparation. He may choose to fast from distractions, spend time in solitude, or write down the truths that rose within him. These are not small practices. They are rituals of readiness. Only through this inward discipline can he become a vessel strong enough to carry what his future is already holding for him. And then, from this space of readiness, life begins to whisper again, this time in symbols, signs, and moments of synchronicity. For those who have trained their inner ear, the universe does not speak in thunder. It speaks in wind, in patterns, in repetitions that tug gently at the edge of awareness. A certain bird calls at the same hour each morning. A number appears on every receipt. A person from the past returns just as a thought of them flickers through the mind. These are not coincidences. These are messages. But to the distracted mind, they are missed. To the hurried soul, they seem trivial. Only the quiet man, the watchful one, sees them for what they are, divine communication. Chua, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, not always as a person, but as a sign, Chua. Rei Zen teaching, there is an old tale of a master who sent his students to meditate in nature. One, returning early, said he had seen nothing special. The master asked him, "Did you hear the tree creak in the wind?" "Yes," said the student. "And what did it say?" "I don't know," he replied. The master nodded slowly. "Then you did not yet hear it. Go again. To truly hear the invisible world, one must slow the pace of the inner world. That is why monks walk slowly, why their eyes are calm, why their breath is deliberate. They are not lost in thought. They are listening. In our time, the signs still arrive, but we must learn how to notice them. A man may find that just after intimacy, he feels a heightened awareness. His senses are sharper. His perception is thinner, more open. This is not only the body's response, it is the soul's readiness to receive. He may hear a sentence in passing that pierces him with meaning. He may sense that a dream carries a message. He may feel that a decision must be made, not next week, but now. These are the stirrings of divine timing. It is important here not to dismiss what arises. Not every whisper is from the mind. Some are from the deeper layers of knowing. The way of heaven is subtle. It does not shout, but all who are still can hear it. Chuo, Liu Wei, Chinese philosopher. Just as birds fly south not through reasoning, but through instinct, so too must a man learn to trust the signs of his life. He must become fluent in the language of mystery. In the natural world, migration, blooming, and hibernation all occur according to invisible cues. Temperature, wind, scent. The deer knows when to shed its antlers. The tree knows when to draw its sap inward. There is no committee, no alarm, only wisdom written in the bones of life. When a man lives aligned with this inner knowing, he begins to recognize the seasons of his soul. He knows when to advance, when to rest, when to speak, when to wait. This, too, applies after intimacy. If his heart tells him something must be addressed, he must listen. His spirit urges retreat, reflection, or expression, he must not delay. The signs are not always convenient, but they are always true. Through such trust, he becomes not only a participant in his destiny, but a co-creator of it. There is power in seeing what others do not see, not for superiority, but for stewardship. The man who reads the signs, who honors the preparation, who trains his vessel, he becomes not merely someone who experiences life, he becomes someone who embodies it, not a leaf carried by the wind, but the tree rooted in purpose. Not a wanderer lost in questions, but a sage who welcomes the silence between answers. And in that stillness, in that sacred readiness, he finds not only what he was waiting for, he finds who he truly is. Chuo, the man of Tao, does not seek the path. He becomes the path. Chuo, fe chuang tzu. Thus the journey continues, not forward but inward. And there, in the quiet chamber of the soul, all the mysteries once hidden begin to unfold. The preparation has not been wasted. The signs were not random. The intimacy was never just of the flesh. It was the beginning of remembering. And now, remembering, he walks with deeper breath, clearer eyes, and the steady heartbeat of one who is no longer waiting for life to begin, for he knows it already has. So what does a man think after intimacy? Not merely of the body, but of truth, of timing, of transformation, because every connection is a prophecy in disguise. It reveals either your shadow or your calling. He who walks with silence after the storm carries the blessing of the wind. If you feel restless, reflective, or reborn after closeness, it is because your soul is awakening to something larger, something fated, something now. When monks close their scrolls, they bow not to the text, but to the moment they now step into. You are standing at that moment. Will you listen to the signs, or will you walk past the gate without knowing it had opened?